Hello, YouTube self-healing souls. I'm Megan, and thanks for being with me. You may be here because you like my weekly content, and thank you to all my supporters, but you also may be here because you saw the words sciatic nerve. And if that's the case, this video is about releasing the sciatic nerve, but a specific type of sciatic pain. So there's two types of sciatic pain. One we call sciatica, which is when we actually have the pain is away from the source. So the source of the pain is actually in your lumbar spine. So to be, if you have a bone overgrowth in your lumbar spine, a herniation, any sort of pressure on the lumbar area. So it could be a stenosis, but it's something that you've been diagnosed with in your lumbar spine. Basically, we say your fourth lumbar vertebrae to your third sacral vertebrae. It's in that area, and you would know because there had been something, injury, that happened in that area. And in that case, we don't usually feel the pain in the buttocks itself. It goes down and radiates into the leg, maybe even the foot. I have a whole video you can watch. It's an hour long that'll show you how you can differentiate between the two. But this video is for what we now call deep gluteal syndrome, or in my other video, it's called Piriformis Syndrome. So it's been updated because sciatic nerve pain can come from oftentimes the piriformis muscle in your butt side. Again, watch my other video. But it can come from any of the deep gluteal muscles, as unfortunately my husband found out last week. We were in Spain and we had booked a beautiful place that you could not drive to, however, and the last 10 minutes was a straight uphill and a straight downhill. And what you'll find is if you have this deep gluteal syndrome, the things that will aggravate it the most are sitting too long, but also walking. And there's an aching. It's literally a deep pain in your butt for sure. But then it can also radiate down the leg like sciatic, because what's actually happening is your sciatic nerve, which is your biggest nerve in your body, is getting compressed or smushed under those deep gluteal muscles. So this video is going to work on helping to release and relax those deep gluteal muscles. It's also good, by the way, if you do tend to have problems with releasing your gluteal muscles without the sciatic pain, what I call the butt cheek confusion, where one side of the gluteal muscles is always firing and tight, and the other side's kind of on a long holiday. So this will help you to bring balance to that as well. You will need to have a blanket and a block. If you have a slow-mo ball, grab your slow-mo ball. And if not, we will use the blanket for the last thing we do today. So we're going to start down on our back. So when working with sciatic pain, one of the first things I want to point out is that if we do anything in external rotation with the hips, dropping the legs out, we're actually putting more compression on the gluteal muscles, thus the nerve. So what we try to do is come into an internal rotation of the thighs. So if you want to take your feet just slightly wider than your hips and let your knees fall together, that's usually a nice, comfortable space for the lumbar spine, as well as making just a little bit of space around the sacrum and the muscles in the buttocks. And then place your hands on your belly. We're going to land a little bit because it's really important to work with the breath if you've been having this pain. And of course, you're invited to put more padding underneath you if it doesn't feel good here. But just start to breathe into your abdomen. Feel the rise and the spaciousness of the breath on the inhale. And feel any parts of your body that are touching the ground on the exhale, including your feet, the back of the pelvis, the low back, your shoulders, the base of the skull. And just let them receive the support of the ground. So breathe in, create spaciousness. Feel your abdomen rise and fill. And that's what we're going to need to do, is we're going to need to create space around that sciatic nerve. So create the space and the settling down and the release into the ground, receiving the ground. And typically you'll only have this in one side or the other. I'm going to do both sides for the sake of the video, but it may be that you can release just doing one side. So we're going to start with the left leg. You're welcome to keep your right leg bent, or if you'd like, you can place that you can roll up the blanket or a block and put it underneath your right thigh if you're extending your right leg. But we're also going to extend the left leg. We're going to start with some nerve flossing. So just taking the left leg out, start by feeling your inhale, and as you inhale, reach the ball of the foot away from you And then exhale, release it. And then inhale, reach the top of the foot towards your shin. So push through your heel. And then release it. So it may sound strange to start with the feet, but the idea of the nerve flossing is we're going to move the nerve a little bit all the way from the foot to the base of the spine. So starting with just the foot. Inhale, draw the foot towards you. Exhale, let it go. Inhale, press away through the ball of the foot. Exhale, let it go. So if this feels okay and it's not aggravating your back, or what you have to notice is you may feel discomfort, but what are you saying to yourself? Do you still feel safe? Are you going to regret it? If not, then we can consider doing the same thing, still feeling supported, but take the hands to the back of the thigh. Let your leg go as far away from you as possible without pulling the shoulders off the ground. Let the shoulders stay relaxed. And we'll do a few bends into the knee first, just coming into a partial extension, inhaling up and exhaling down. So now we're stretching the back of the thigh, inhaling up and exhaling, slowly coming down. Anytime you need to, think of the spaciousness on the inhale, breathing to the abdomen, and then the grounding, the feeling of support underneath you on the exhale. Next time you take this leg up, and if the extension's not working, you're still just going to do the flossing here, but we can keep it there and do that same flossing. Inhale, reach through the toes, and I like to think there's a string from my nose to my toes, and I bring my nose towards my toes, because all of your nerves actually start in your brain, right? So think all the way from the brain to the toes. Exhale, release, and then inhale, draw the top of the foot towards you like you were doing before, and tilt the head back. And exhale, release. So as you reach through the ball of the foot, reach the toes up, the nose follows the toes. Exhale, release. Inhale, feel yourself slide towards the top of your skull and draw your toes towards your nose. Exhale, release. So just think of gently moving that nerve a little bit, and also getting a little stretch through the back of the leg and the buttocks. Okay, then we're just going to change it slightly. So as you inhale and you reach through the toes, take your nose away from your toes like you don't want to see your feet. Exhale, release. Just let your body go back to its natural position. Inhale, top of the foot towards the nose. So squeeze them towards each other. Now you want to see your toes. Exhale, just release to what I call the space of grace, wherever your body naturally lands. Inhale, toes and nose away from one another. Exhale, release. Inhale, toes and nose towards one another. So again, you could be doing this down here too. Doesn't have to be lifted if it's too much. Just getting that little bit of, think of your nerve like a string, and your sciatic nerve is as big as your pinky, and you're just gently moving it around through those buttocks muscles. But obviously here you're getting a little more stretch through that back line. All right, and then let that come down. We'll take a moment. You can put the bolster under or blanket underneath both legs and take both legs out for a moment and just notice. Breathe your belly. Notice your left leg and your right leg. I call this the magic moment. So your brain is learning, what does it feel like to do even these simple, gentle movements? Is there a difference now between the weight, the length, the size of your left leg or right leg, or just your awareness of the two sides? If your two legs could have a conversation with each other, what are they saying? And was that your happy side or your grumpy side? And then we'll be switching. So you could keep that blanket underneath both legs or just underneath the left leg, letting the left leg go on holiday. Feeling yourself from the right toes to the hip. We'll do it on the ground first. So as you inhale, reach the ball of the foot away from you. Feel the top of the foot in the shin stretch. Exhale, release. Inhale, draw the top of the foot towards the shin. Push through the heel like you're pushing on a pedal. Feel your calf stretch, your Achilles. Exhale, release. So we're recognizing the nerves, that sciatic nerve branches off in the knee, and it goes through your outer calf, through the peroneal nerve, and the front of the calf in the tibial nerve. So sometimes we feel this in the top of the foot. That would be the peroneal nerve. That's more common. And the bottom of the foot in that tibial nerve. Okay, so if this feels okay with the leg extended, you can take it up as we go on. Otherwise, keep the leg down there. Keep following me along. Hands behind the thigh to the meaty part of your hamstrings. We'll start with the knee bent. And we want to first introduce ourselves to that little stretch in the hamstrings. So inhale into extension as far as you can go comfortably. Keep the foot and the toes relaxed. Think of moving from your knee. Exhale back down. Inhale, extension, spaciousness. Maybe even feel the spaciousness in the back of the thigh, the back of the knee. Exhale, relax. And inhale into the extension. So find where you can stay extended. If it feels better to draw the leg towards you, you can do that. Keep that extension, or again, leg on the ground. And now inhale again, reach through the toes, stretch the top of the foot, the shin. Exhale, release. Inhale, drop the top of the foot towards you, push through the heel. Exhale, release. Very subtle movements. But remembering what you're doing is you're going to feel your muscles, but think of that nerve slightly moving. And then we add the head to this. So as you inhale, reach through the foot. Bring your nose towards your toes. Feel yourself rolling towards the base of the skull. So let the head be heavy. Exhale, relax. Inhale. Bring your skull back, your nose back, and let the toes follow the nose. Exhale, release to your space of grace, wherever your body naturally feels most relaxed. Inhale is the effort, the stretching. Exhale, release. And go the opposite way. So sometimes we call this nerve flossing. There's nerve gliding. And I say those terms just so you could imagine that pinky-sized nerve going from your low back, your lumbar area, your sacrum, and all the way to your toes. But recognizing it actually has to go all the way to your brain. And then we can switch, and instead of the toes and the nose working together, moving in the same direction, let them go in the opposite direction. So as you reach towards the ceiling with the ball of the foot, look away from the toes. Think of stretching that nerve at both ends. Exhale, release. Inhale. Press through the heel. Bring your nose towards your chest or towards the toes. Exhale, release. And always that space to just let go. And if it's too much pressure, your arms are tired, then you can do the same thing with the leg extended. And with Michael last week, we started with the leg on the ground, and eventually he was able to extend it. But it's not necessary to extend it if it's just causing discomfort. All right, and then we'll pause again. You can put that blanket underneath you with the legs extended, relaxing the low back, or go back to feet on the floor and knees bent and letting the inner knees fall together for just a moment. It's like when we're creating a recipe, we're making something tasty to eat. Every time we put a new ingredient in, we want to taste it. So we're just going to taste, what did we do and how does your back feel, your leg feel? If you need to bring any spontaneous movements in at this point, you can do that too. And we'll go back to working on that left side. So take your feet so that they're wider than your hips. You should be able to see your heels. Point your kneecaps up towards the sky. And then feel the big toe side of your left leg. Your right leg is going to stay right where it is. If there was a light on your kneecap, it's pointing right up towards the ceiling. And then from the big toe side of the left foot, as you inhale, tip onto that big toe side and just gently draw your left thigh bone towards the front right corner of the mat, or maybe your left kneecap. And exhale, come back up. So start small, because what we're doing now is we're stretching into that right buttocks, all the deep gluteal muscles, including the piriformis. And then you exhale, release to your space of grace. So if this is your troubling side, say nice things to yourself and recognize there is a difference between sensation that may not feel terrific versus causing actual damage to our structures. So you have to decide, as important as what you feel is, what are you saying to yourself? Do you feel safe? So we're not necessarily causing musculoskeletal damage, but if that nerve is really pinchy and sending fire signals down your leg, then we want to stop. Otherwise, keep tipping. So there's a couple different ways to play with this too. So if you move from your foot, that means I'm acknowledging the arch of my foot and the big toe and initiating the movement from my foot. That may feel safer than the other way to think of it is your thigh. What if you move from your thigh? Does that feel different? Does that feel safer? Or the final one is, as you're doing this movement, notice the way your left side of your back is arching and the hip is lifting a little bit. So it might be that the safest, most comfortable way for you to do this is to actually initiate from the hip, to lift your hip. But what feels best for you? And then the second part we can also add on to this to make a little more space through that left side is, as you're inhaling into this internal rotation, you might think of sliding your left arm overhead, where I get to pet a dog, and exhale. Bring it back. The other thing you'll notice, and I do this mostly just to acknowledge my head and my neck and my shoulders are relaxed, is I'm letting my head turn towards the left shoulder as I reach that leg in. And this is something I experienced too, the sciatic pain. I fortunately haven't had it for a number of years now, but because I do have sacroiliac junction dysfunction, that often goes hand in hand. So I know these tricks, and I have lots of videos on SI joint dysfunction. But just thinking of that big nerve, and you're just gently stretching the muscles in and around the buttocks, both the outer little glutes, I call them, the glute medius minimus, your big glute in your buttocks. And if you find a space where you just want to stop and be still, you can do that for a few breaths. So it's that internal rotation, creating space in your left butt cheek and around the left side of your sacrum. Go back to your belly breath. So your belly breath is also a way to know, if you can breathe comfortably to your abdomen, that we're not sending those signals to the nervous system, those red flag signals. And then slide your arm down, come back, either extend your legs or let them fall together and just notice again. Notice what your two hips feel like. Are you landing differently now? The two sides of your body. Just taking the still, quiet time to feel. Your body speaks to you through sensation. So being present in the sensation without having to tell the story of what it is or why it is, just noticing, let it speak. And then you can take your knees apart, heels wider than your hips, and just feel your right foot, particularly the big toe side of your right foot. And as you inhale, come onto that big toe side, feeling your thigh cross the center of the body. You can also think of reaching your kneecap towards the left front corner of the mat as you inhale. Exhale, come back. Inhale, reaching in a little at a time. So if you've got that nerve pain, sometimes it can be in the front of the thigh or the back of the thigh. Just go really easy. And then play with where you're initiating this movement. So start to feel the way that if you're moving from the foot, the leg will respond and follow, and the hip will respond. You'll sense the way your right hip might lift and arch. So you can continue to move from the foot if it feels safe and comfortable, or you can think of moving from your thigh or your kneecap. So these are all different messages to your brain, depending on where you initiate this from. A little bit different with the nerves and the muscles. And you might even do the movement from the pelvis itself. So think of lifting your hip up, engaging. You're actually going to engage those muscles in the deep glutes and then release them as you come forward. So we tighten them a little bit, but then stretch them out, what we call an eccentric. So it's like we tighten our hand and then we stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. It's that idea if you're moving from the hip. But mostly just notice what feels best. And if you want to add the right arm reaching overhead on your inhale, exhaling back, you might turn your head towards your right arm Just letting your skull be heavy and roll. And the opportunity to just stop and be still. Remember the breath in, creating space in your body, vitality, levity. And the breath out, landing, letting your bones be heavy and supported by the ground. Let your muscles relax onto your bones. And then come back to the center. Before we switch movements, take both legs out long. Opportunities there to put the bolster or blanket, something underneath your blanket, underneath your legs. And once again, just taste. New ingredient just went into your body. And what does that taste like? What is the sensation? How do your two legs feel? Your low back? And then we'll come back to the knees bent and feet on the ground. So this next one is like a what we call maybe a bridge pose, but we're going to do one side at a time. So take your hands and touch the two bony sticking out parts of the front of your hips. Those are your ASIS points, and find those. Think of those like two lights that are beaming up towards the sky right now. But I want you to actually imagine that even though our pelvis is one piece, it's connected through the sacrum, that you have two sides to your pelvis. You have a left, and you can feel that bone in the front of the left, and a right, the bone in the front of the right. And then that goes all the way through to the floor. Your sacrum, which is that triangular bone, is right between the two hips, holding it all together. But imagine just that left side and feel your left foot, the toes and the ball of the foot, and begin to just press into the heel and the ball of the left foot. And notice what happens. And as you breathe out, release. So this may not make sense at first, but when you're pressing in your foot, what you're actually doing is you're going to feel a little bit of engagement through the hamstrings and the glutes. So if this is your crummy, grumpy side, you may not want to do it on this side. I'm starting with my left leg. But sometimes the other side, because we're actually increasing that compression on the muscle. The other side is sometimes the increasing of compression on the muscle is still movement, and it helps to free the nerve. So you got to decide for yourself, but you're just pushing into the foot. And notice how as you begin to do that, the left hip is going to lift up a little bit. You can also think of pushing your left shin bone slightly forward. But we want to turn on a little bit of action in the back of the thigh and the buttocks. And then here's the key, completely release it when you come down. So we're moving the muscle. We're going deeper into contraction on the inhale as we push into the foot, but then we're releasing it. So do this a few more times with just that left side, noticing if those muscles are turning on. And so if this is the side that isn't in pain, it might be the side that is on permanent holiday. So we want to get those muscles working. Now bring your awareness into your right foot, the heel and the ball of the foot, and feel your right leg line, particularly the hamstrings, the back of your thigh and your gluteal muscles. And start by slightly pushing the ball of the foot and the heel into the ground, especially the heel. The heel corresponds with the back of the leg, the muscles in the back. And just notice you feel that little bit of firing through the back of the right leg and the right butt cheek. And so if you found that one side is hyperactive, it's doing too much, you might just work on the side that's on permanent holiday, pushing into the foot right now. But otherwise, testing out that right side, pushing into the foot, and then notice how the hip starts to lift. That right hip will lift a little bit. It's following the foot. You might even push the shin bone slightly forward. And can you sense the muscles in the back of the thigh and all around your buttocks tightening as you push into the foot? And really important, releasing. Let them fall into the floor. So doing this just a few more times with that right side and noticing any differences. Is one side less likely to release when you come down or less likely to engage when you're coming up? So now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to just alternate sides. So almost like you're walking. So think of those two beams of light pointing up towards the sky, your two hip bones. Press into your left foot and feel the left hip lift. As you breathe in, exhale, release it down. Right hip. And lift up. Push into your right foot. So those two beams of light are slightly crossing over. And we've started this by pushing into the foot because that's going to help us to engage the muscles in the back of the thigh and the glutes. But notice the way your hip is moving and see if you can make this movement from your hip. So you're still going to push into your foot a little bit, but think of lifting. If it feels okay, lift a little bit higher, squeezing. Point that left hip bone over to the right in a diagonal. Exhale, release down. And right hip. Lift up, a little rotation for the pelvis, and exhale down. As you're doing this, you could add the arms in. As you inhale and lift the left hip, you could reach your left arm overhead. Exhale down. Right hip lifts, reach your right arm overhead. So that same concept of where you initiate the movement, one place can feel better than the other. You can initiate by pushing into the foot, by pressing your shin forward, or maybe even now lifting the hip itself, feeling the muscles around the hip tighten and then release. Take one or two more, just noticing the two sides. And then coming down, relax completely, let your knees fall together. So the next one is a play on that will take us deeper into the movement. So each of these builds on the next. So at any time, if you feel like those red flags are going off too much, just stop, or know that if you need to hug your knees in or take a full body stretch in between, do that for yourself. Otherwise, we come back into that position. I like to lengthen my tailbone, let the low back be long and relaxed. And then think of those two headlights, your two hip bones. And you're going to, so now we won't do it to the breath because we're going to do it slowly, but notice your breath. Make sure you're still breathing in a comfortable way. Press into your left foot. Notice the muscles starting to turn on, and then lift that left hip. And you're going to continue to lift the left hip as high as you can initially to start, so you feel strong through that left leg. Once you get your left hip as high as it can go, hold it there for a moment. See, are those gluteal muscles on, your hamstrings? And then keep that side strong and start to slowly lift the right side so you'll feel the right side come on. Lift till the right hip, that light is as high as the left, so now they're both pointing upwards again. And then you're going to keep that right side turned on. Can you feel your right gluteal muscle turned on? See if you can completely release the left while you're still up there, and let the right support the left as it slowly comes down. Once the left has landed, then we slowly let the right come down and release. So this is what I term independent suspension of the butt cheeks. So the pattern is push into your left foot, engage the left butt cheek. Lift as high as you can. So each time you can challenge yourself and go a little higher to your highest point. Eventually, your right hip comes up too, and you're going to squeeze that one. So both gluteal muscles, butt muscles are turned on. Get the right as high as the left. Once you're at the same height, feel that right, keep that strong, release the left. So you can see I just let it go. Slowly let the left come down. Right is doing all the work until the left lands. And then a little bit at a time, release the right till it comes all the way down. Let's do this direction 2 more times. Press into the left foot to start the engagement. Squeeze the muscles in that left hip and buttocks. Lift just as high as it suits you. I like to go a little bit higher each time. Once your hip is as high as it can go, turn the right butt cheek on. Lift the right as high as the left so you're at the top here. Something that can help you, by the way, is hugging your inner thighs together. At the top, feeling both sides. Now can you completely let the left side go? And if that's your reactive side, that might be hard to do. See if you can do it. Let the left side come down. And then the right side. Last one. Squeeze with the left, push into the foot. Activate just that left butt cheek. and the back of the thigh. And then lift the right up. They're both active, like an elevator coming up. Both hip points pointing up towards the sky. Let that left hip point start to drop and turn out to the left. Completely relax as the right supports it. And all the way down. Let go. Before we switch sides, just take your legs and let them fall one way on the exhale and then back to the center on the inhale and fall the other way on the exhale. Sometimes they call this windshield wipers. Just wash it out. Nice and gently. And then we're going to do that same thing, but the opposite side. So sometimes we notice that one side is a lot more willing to work and one side's a lot more willing to release. So that's why I like to do both sides. Feel those two hip points again. Now push into your right foot, squeeze. So this is my side that really wants to work for me. So it turns right on. The left side, I have to cheer it on a little bit more. But I got that. I'm going to squeeze it, and I'm going to lift that right hip up to as high as I want to take it the first time. And once my right hip is as high as it wants to go, I'm going to squeeze the left and start lifting the left. So both butt cheeks are active until I get the left hip to the height of the right. You can touch your hip points and feel that. Now I'm going to keep the left strong as the right is completely released. That's the trick. That right one doesn't want to turn off. It says, no, I have to help. And then I slowly come down. Once the right has landed, then a slow release for the left coming down to the ground. Once again, pushing into your right foot. Lift your right hip as high as it'll go. Keeping that left one quiet. And then voluntarily turning on the left, pushing into the heel. Lift the left as high as the right. You're at that point where both sides are engaged. Now can you completely release the right? Let the left support it as the right hip slowly comes down. So it's almost like a wave pattern, or I think of a figure 8 pattern or infinity sign that you're making with your hips. You want to imagine that right hip comes up and forward, pushing into the foot. Then the left hip comes up. Both butt cheeks are engaged. Release the right. Right drops. And slowly release the left. Last one on this side. Press into your right foot. Lift the right hip up as high as you can go. Are just those right gluteal muscles turning on and hamstrings. So just the right side. Left side's just getting a free ride. And then turn the left on. Lift it up. Both are lifted. You can hug your thighs for more support. Feel your inner thigh muscles. Release the right. Let the left hip support the right as it descends down slowly, a little at a time. Once the right lands, you're letting the left descend, releasing those muscles a little at a time. Let's take your legs out long. Take a full body stretch. Like a yawn. Take a big breath in. Milo will help us out here. Exhale. Let go. The last one we're going to do here on our back is to grab your block. And this is just more of a reset really for the sacrum, but it can help to learn to engage our inner thighs. So one of the problems oftentimes when we have sciatic pain is that we're weak in our inner thighs. So you're going to take a block between the thighs. Keep your feet about hip distance, knees bent with feet on the ground. Very simple. As you take a breath out, so this is the activation on the breath out, squeeze the block. As you do that, also press your low back and low ribs and lift your tailbone just a little bit. So squeeze the block as you exhale. Inhale, you could release that, letting the belly just fill up. Exhale, press the low back and low ribs down, squeeze the block, and lift your tailbone. So what we're doing is on the exhalation, we're lengthening the low back, and we're turning on the inner thigh muscles now. We're focusing on inner thigh muscles turning on and the glutes staying relaxed. So if when you're doing that, you're feeling these glutes squeeze, 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 just do your best to say, hey, listen, glutes, you're on a beach holiday. Squeeze the block. And then we can actually use what we call the transversus abdominis. I have lots of videos on 4 deep core. So the abdominal muscles will draw in and the pelvic floor draws up and in. Those are active, inner thighs are active, and I can leave my glutes released. Inhale, release everything. Exhale, squeeze the block. Draw the pelvic floor muscles up and in, and the transversus abdominis. Can you keep these glute muscles they're like rocking horses, rocking on the ground and completely relaxed. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, just release, breathe into your belly. Feel the pelvic floor stretch. Feel your abdominal muscles stretch. And then exhale, squeeze the block. This last time we do this, we're going to hold it for a couple of breaths. So exhaling, squeezing the block. Imagine drawing your pelvic floor muscles in. Your transversus abdominis is that big corset of muscles all around your abdomen. You might lift your tailbone just a little bit and just hold this for a few breaths. And what this does too is it creates space around the sacrum, particularly if you can let those gluteal muscles just feel like jello. Let those relax. The support is coming from the inner thighs, maybe the pelvic floor, maybe the transverse abdominis. And if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, you can just slightly lift the tailbone higher if it feels okay. Relax the shoulders, the neck, the jaw. And feel like you're creating space in the back of your buttocks and your sacrum. Those muscles are relaxed. I just caught myself trying to turn them on. Had to say, turn back off. And let that go. Take that block out. Again, it might feel nice to just windshield wiper. Just let your body rock, knees drop back and forth. You also may find I like to do a little bit of just very easy bike pedaling with the feet and the legs, taking them overhead, moving the knees. And for our final relaxation today, if you have the ball, you'll use the ball. If not, I'll show you with a blanket. We're going to roll over onto our belly. I do advise that if you just ate, this may not be the best one for you because we're going to take the ball, the slow-mo ball, and I use about half the air. You don't want it fully inflated. And it's going to go right around the navel center. So you can see why if you just ate, that's going to be a lot of pressure in your stomach. If you don't have the ball, you can also use a blanket. So the blanket would go right there around the navel center. And the placement is really important because what we're trying to do is come on to my knees for a moment. So if I'm in what we call an anterior tilt, that generally doesn't feel good because I'm putting more compression on the back and I also can't release my glute muscles. So what I want to do is come into a posterior tilt, which is the pelvis going back a little bit. So think of a dog that just got in trouble. The dog's tail goes down and that low back is long. So the way we do that on the ground is to place that ball right around the belly. And you might have to play with it for a moment. I know I do. And once you find that space, you'll know you got to let it settle into your belly so it feels like your low back is long. If I put it too far down here, then I'm going to have this big arch. You can see there's an arch in my back. As I bring it up more to where it feels like it's sticking into my belly, then the front of the hip creases are falling to the ground, the thighs are on the ground, and my tailbone is more pointed downwards. That's where you want to go. And you can support your head. You can be on your one cheek, your chin, your forehead, your upper body, wherever it's most comfortable. And start by just rocking the tops of your feet into the ground. See how wide apart your legs want to be so that there's comfort. You can roll your tops of your thigh bones into the ground. And then shifting, not from the feet or the thighs, but from the hips themselves. Let your hips rock side to side. And you may be more comfortable at this point bringing your breath into your chest. It's a little harder to breathe to the belly. Just really soft, rocking motions from side to side. And see if you can locate yourself through your sacrum and then all the way down through the buttocks. And as you're rocking, finding that space where it feels like you're creating freedom and a little extra space on either side of the sacrum where the sacrum attaches to the hip bones. So there's this feeling of lengthening the low back and spreading the back of the pelvis, widening the back of the pelvis. And you can continue to move and breathe or just be still. The other thing that helps me is if your toes are turned out, if we think of taking the thighs and rolling them inward, so internal rotation, like you're trying to lay more on the outer edge of the thigh and come onto the pinky toe side of the foot, that can create a little bit more space. Just creating a feeling of safety and comfort through the sacrum and the whole deep gluteal region. And just like you were able to breathe to your belly in the very beginning of the class, imagine you can breathe to this region in your pelvis, the sacrum, what we call the lumbosacral junction, and into your buttocks. If you want to breathe to your belly, you might feel it there more. You can feel the compression of the abdomen going into the ball as you breathe in. And think of the spaciousness of the back body and the pelvis. Breathe out and just fall onto the ball. I'm going to leave you here in silence for just a minute or so. And knowing in your body which side of your sciatic nerve is being a bugger. Picture that coming off of your sacrum, going through the buttocks. So right or left, choose your side. And down through the back of the leg into the knee and splitting off through the tibial nerve, peroneal nerve, and your outer leg, front of the shin, top of the foot, bottom of the foot. Just send it your kindness, your compassion, your love. Send it the invitation to release and relax. So your muscles in your buttocks release and relax. You're welcome to stay here as long as you'd like. And coming out, I often like to use my arms, push out, and work into a slow child's pose. So just pressing back, stretching that back end a little bit. You can exhale, push back. Inhale, rock forward. So you'll notice I'm not going into the arch part because that puts that compression on the back and the spine. I'm just stretching on the back end here on the exhale. Inhaling forward and exhaling back. And the final resting place, and I'm going to have you choose the side for yourself, is if you know that it's your left side that's sticky, you're going to take your knees together, take the left knee behind the right, just slightly, maybe an inch. If it's your right side that's sticky, take your right leg slightly behind your left. Knees together. And drop to wherever you can. You can take a blanket underneath you if you want. And start to fall into what we call child's pose. If your knee compression doesn't like this, you can put the blanket behind your thighs here. So a little bit of support there. But fall back and start to reach the left hand over to the right if it's your left knee that's back. If it's your right knee that's back, you're going to side bend to the left, reaching your right hand. So whichever side is the grumpy side, you're stretching that out by, think of taking that hip back, the knee's already back. So I'm working on my left side here so you can see. I'm breathing into just that side, making it long through the whole torso, the hip, the buttocks. And the blanket can be back here too. And just thinking of whichever side you're lengthening, slowly creating space between the armpit and the hip, lengthening through your whole waist. And then walking back to the center and working your way up. Thank you for allowing Milo to take his nap today and for joining us. And I do hope that this practice helps to bring some peace and comfort into your buttocks and your sciatic nerve. Peace, joy, love, and light.